Hey guys, Art Decline here, Average Picker. We've got the evening sun streaming in, washing out the video a little bit. But here we are, because when I did my annoyances kind of video a little back, about my kind of top 5 things that I find annoying that come up in conversation, I left one off, and I left it off intentionally. Because people usually go, that seems like a very practical skill. So it begs the question, is lockpicking a practical skill? And I'm going to say no. No, lockpicking is not very practical. Now let's be a little clear. I'm defining lockpicking as what more or less I do and what a lot of you watching the video do. I'm not looking at it as a kind of a locksmith perspective. I'm looking at it just from a lockpicking perspective. By no means am I saying locksmithing is impractical, but just the ability to pick itself. That's what we're talking about here. So this is something that seems to come up in conversation quite a bit when you bring up that you do lockpicking. People always seem to think it's something that's fairly practical. And they usually comment on that. And there's some crossover too. I think we see a fair number of people who are preppers that kind of get into lockpicking. Now, I don't know about them all. The ones I've run into, however, I wouldn't really say they're into lockpicking. What they've typically done is they've read the MIT guide. They've purchased some kind of covert, everyday carry kit kind of thing that can be stashed away, and they have probably picked a Master 3 or something, maybe a couple, and that's it. I'm a lock picker. Yeah, I know how to pick locks now. And fairly typically I run into the fact they don't really keep it up as a practice either, which is kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit with it. But yeah, so if we look at it kind of from that and just a general social view, I don't think it's all that practical. So I went and I had a look at a map of my street, and so of about the 38 houses where I can say 100% the people know I pick locks, and I've talked to them about Locksport and they have my phone number. Let's see, in the last 2 years I've had one request for a gate. It was a Master 3, it was on a gate padlock to be picked. That turned out the key was actually broken off inside, and so we got that extracted, and then they had another key and it was all good. So really didn't need much of lockpicking skill there. I had the 14-year-old's lockbox, which contained his allowance money that I had to pick. Easiest pick of my life, and probably one of the most rewarding. So I will chalk that up to a big one for practicality. Never seen a kid happier. Let's see. Next door neighbor asked me one time. They locked themselves out when they had just moved in. Asked me to pick. This was a couple years ago. I was fairly new to picking. I was having issues, and then I just discovered the window next to the door was actually open. So we just did that. So that's a no for practicality. And and the other next door, I had a request a little bit ago actually, and 10 minutes later, by the time I had actually gotten out of the shower, somebody had arrived and let the person in. Now there's one other exception, across the street. I've picked that guy's trailer hitch lock more times than I can count. I don't consider really that practical at this point. That's just, you need to buy a new fucking trailer hitch, and you know you don't have the key for it. So just get a new one, stop having me unlock it. So really we've got one in the last 2.5 years, 3 years, that I would say has been practical and has had a good payoff. Okay, so what about from the prepper's point of view? The impending coming apocalypse, the zombies and the squid men and everything are going to come and attack, and we're going to be left as Mad Max scavengers running around wastelands of a city, just feeding off the old world and whatever supplies we can happen to scavenge and find. Is it that practical? Well, it's practical enough, or it is thought to be practical enough, that the dude that does some of the work on my motorcycle has agreed to let me into his little compound and share his beans and rice with me, since I have the skill of lockpicking. But is it really? And this is where we start to look at the break, I think, between lockpicking, lock sport kind of thing, and just security and entry. And I think all of you out there are aware there's usually an easier way in than through the lock. Okay, but now the shit has hit the fan and we have to all run out and scavenge supplies. Well, lockpicking is it's covert and it's a non-destructive form of entry. So yeah, it might be good in a way, because then someone's going to not realize maybe that we've been in that house, or that somebody has been in that house or building and gotten some supplies because they're just running by. However, that's all off-put by the fact that that person running by that sees that is just going to break the fucking window, or kick the door in, or do something else, because they're not going to realize it's been raided or anything, and they're going to go in. And maybe I'm sleeping there because I use my covert skills to get in there and sleep, and maybe a little stealthy wise. Well, everyone else is just kicking the doors in. They're just breaking the windows. So really, the best way to fit into that looting society thing is just going to be to meet the norm standard, go around kicking in doors and breaking the windows and climbing in that way. I think another problem with it, especially in the survival kind of aspect of things, is upkeep. I mean, locks, even an easy to pick lock, that would be a base beginner lock. If it's not kept up, it can be a hard pick. I mean, if it just gets gunky and full of crud and starts to rust and starts to corrode, you can't really pick it. So again, we're on this survival aspect thing where, you're probably just better off cutting through the rusty chain somehow, as opposed to trying to pick the lock. Or again, once more, going through a window or kicking in the now rotting door or whatever, because the gatehouse deadbolt has just been sitting there neglected and unused and exposed to all the elements, without a key going in and out of it regularly to at least keep junk from collecting on the pins. I mean, that's a hard pick, honestly. You take a gatehouse, chuck it out there in the dirt for a while, bring it back in. It's probably going to be it's a tough pick. I get them in from the restore all the time. I don't have one in front of me. I'd show it to you. Yeah, I've got a few in there. They've given me a run for my money. I mean, I've pretty much had to shim them open, and then once you get in there, you see how cruddy it is. So again, it's just easier to deal with the lock by getting around it, bypassing it. Okay, so I come across a group in the woods. We're all camping. They have a lockbox full of beans and ammunition, and I have no beans and no ammunition, and I'm really starving, and I could use that beans and ammunition, and it's in some kind of lockbox. Now we're in the woods, so presumably they're able to carry this box around, and so am I. Is lockpicking really that practical of a skill, even if it's got like a little Master 3 or something on it? Well, I'm just going to wait till they're gone, and I'm going to run up and grab the box and run away with it. And later, in my weakened state, just before I starve to death, I will beat the box open with a rock or a hammer and get the beans. What if they've chained their lockbox to a tree? Or maybe I need a bicycle, and there's a bicycle, but it's chained up to a bicycle ramp or a lamp post. Great, lockpick my way in. Well, I think Lockpicking Lawyer has pretty much showed us that you just bolt cutters, hacksaws, and a ram set. It's a lot more easier, and it doesn't take any real practicing or skill. So what I can do is I can see the bicycle that I want, and I can sit in my compound and send my horde of orphans out armed with ram sets and get all the bicycles and all the lockboxes that are chained to trees. Problem solved. My arch enemies have a secret base and it's full of supplies that they've stolen from me. I'm past now the point of just eluding from individuals in the woods. We've got to get into this base. I want to get my stuff back and maybe a little bit more just to teach them a lesson. But, maybe they've got those metal shutters that pull down over the windows of their base. And they've boarded up their doors. Well, again, we're into that division of entry versus, kind of covert entry thing. Well, there's probably an easier way in still. We still have a ram set option, which again is a skillless kind of method. And we still got hacksaws, maybe we can pry things off. We're going to come in with tire irons and crowbars. Okay, now, but it's not covert, you're saying. Wow, I'm getting a lot, look at that sun. Shoom. Let's sit like this. But that's not covert. Well, presumably that group's probably a lot larger than me. I'm gonna wait till they're gone. And then I'm just gonna go beat the heck out of the door or a window or whatever it is I can find. I'm gonna clip through with my bolt cutters on those pull down fencings. I'm gonna hack and I'm gonna saw. I'm gonna use the ram set on the door locks. I'm gonna try those kind of methods for getting in. Okay, but what if that's not the case? They're not ever leaving enough to where I can just bang around on the front door or a window or try to chisel my way in or look for a basement window to crawl through or something like that. They're a large enough group that they can keep people on the grounds on guard 24/7. I think it's just time to kiss my shit goodbye at that point. Don't think I'm going to be getting in there. Not with me and my lonesome. But I really want my stuff. Well, what if I go tell them I know how to lockpick and they find that to be such a practical skill, they let me in their compound and they let me join them. And then I get all my shit and I run away. I just started thinking about, so in the around 1984, I think it was, this game came out called Wasteland. And Wasteland went on to become Fallout 1 and 2, and then Bethesda took it over and became the probably more known Fallout 3, 4, and whatever they're up to now, where they ruined the series. And then Wasteland 2 actually just came out some years ago, finally after like a 20-year wait. But in Wasteland 1, it was kind of interesting because you could come up to the doors and you could have put points in lockpicking and lockpicked your way in, but if you kind of thought to try some other items, because it wasn't immediately obvious, you just had to kind of experiment. You could use things like a sledgehammer, you could use a crowbar on doors, knock those open, TNT, grenades, rocket launchers. These were all actually options in a game in 1984 for getting through a door, which was pretty cool. So you could actually save the points, not put them in lockpicking, just as long as you remembered to always carry around a crowbar and you had one of your party members that had a good bit of strength in it. It's a pretty groundbreaking little game there for its time. So anyway, yeah, there we go, guys. Just like I said, a quick little for funds video. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. You're welcome to put your thoughts in the comments or do your own videos or whatever on it. It's just kind of my 2 cents in a just fun way to look at it real quickly and briefly. Yeah, hoping to try to knock out another video later this evening. I'm not sure. But anyway, you guys have a good one.